A few days ago, I went to see the doctor because of abdominal pain. He examined me, prescribed some medicine, and then sent me home again. At first, the pain did indeed get better, but then it grew worse again. Now I am told that I have a ruptured appendix. A few days ago, I went to the workshop because the battery symbol in the instrument cluster kept on lighting up. The car was examined and the battery was replaced. Things went well for a while, but then the battery symbol in the instrument cluster lit up again. And now, my car's actually broken down. Even though in the one case we're talking about a medical emergency, and in the other case it is a vehicle that breaks down, the two situations do have some things in common. In both cases, professional help was sought some days before because of the symptoms which later reappeared. The complaints were examined in both cases, and a treatment was also administered. And yet the complaints not only came back again in both cases, they also had serious consequences. Obviously, in neither of the two cases was the root cause of the problem discovered, so it was not treated either. Both the patient and the customer have every right to be unhappy. Looking for the root cause of a problem in a complex system, be it the human body or a sophisticated motor vehicle, often poses a great challenge. In the case of people, illnesses are expressed through perceptible body signs, so-called symptoms. In our case, we have the symptom abdominal pain. By taking a painkiller, only the symptom and not its cause was eliminated. That's why, after a short-lived improvement, the symptom appeared again. In order to eliminate a symptom permanently, it is necessary to find and treat the actual illness. Only after the actual illness has been found can a treatment be implemented, which will lead to a permanent elimination of the symptoms. This way, in our example, the ruptured appendix which led to the emergency could have been avoided. All this also holds true for the examination of vehicles, as you will find out on the pages that follow. Our vehicle emergency could have been prevented too, if the root cause of the problem had been found. Please click on all the components which cannot be responsible for the complaint. Very good. As you can see, the number of malfunction sources has been reduced by simply ruling out all those components which could not possibly have caused the fault. The source of the problem can be found in one of the components shown here. Try to track down the fault. First of all, choose the component you wish to work through. Then click on a suitable aid. Now it's your turn. Try to find the fault. The battery will be recharged. Now that the battery has been recharged, you can begin checking the components. When you have detected the faulty component, please click on Continue. On the previous page, you checked the battery. Now click on the component which is responsible for the malfunction. Correct. The power measurement under load has shown that the alternator is the faulty component. The result of the examination of battery and cabling showed that these two components can be ruled out as the cause of the malfunction. Let's think again about how we went about finding a solution to our problem. The first step was to think about which components could be ruled out as the source of the malfunction and therefore did not have to be checked. Then you checked which components were in good working order and therefore could also be discounted as possible sources of the malfunction. These were the battery and the cabling. You were then able to identify the component which was responsible for the customer's complaint. By the way, this procedure, namely ruling out individual possible sources of a malfunction step by step, is called the process of elimination. The DAS also operates using the process of elimination. However, humans remain far superior to the computer because they can also make use of their senses and do not need to work within predetermined structures. In the second chapter of our training program, you will learn how to succeed in tracing the cause of a malfunction even faster and with greater certainty. Before a doctor uses sophisticated modes of examination, such as an ultrasound scan or X-rays to rule out possible illnesses, he will first try to find direct clues about the origin of the complaints. To do this, he will ask the patient about the exact location and type of pain, or will gather information using simple aids. This way, in many cases, he can find the cause of the trouble directly with little or even no need at all for sophisticated methods of examination. In the workshop too, many telltale signs help to find the root cause of a malfunction faster and with greater certainty. Yet, how do we ascertain what these telltale signs are? In this picture of a workshop, click on the sources of information and the aids which can assist you with troubleshooting. Then evaluate your answers. Correct. The sources of information are marked in yellow, the tools or aids in blue. Incidentally, some of the elements can be both a source of information and an aid. For instance, a colleague can give you important hints or help you with the visual inspection. Maybe you were surprised to see that on the previous page, eyes, ears, nose and hands were marked as important aids. This case will show you, though, that your senses used correctly can be important instruments when it comes to troubleshooting. A customer has brought his sprinter to the workshop with a problem. Find the malfunction with the help of the sources of information at your disposal. To do this, click on the icons on the left, then continue. Here you see the job sheet. The windscreen washing system is defective. Not a single drop of water comes out of the nozzles, even though I've topped up the washer fluid. Here are the visible parts of the windscreen washer system. Carry out a visual inspection, checking whether the washer nozzles are free or clogged up in the process. In order to reproduce the malfunction, turn the ignition on. Now you can reproduce the malfunction. Do this by clicking on the combination switch. The malfunction memory contains the following information. In this simplified function diagram, you can see the components involved in the malfunctioning system. Click on each of the component parts to check it. The result of each check will then be displayed. On the previous page, you were given clues about the malfunction. Now click on the component where the cause of the malfunction might be located. If you are convinced that none of the components shown here are faulty, click on the thumbs up button for All Components OK. Anytime you wish, you can click on the Sources of Information button to evaluate the malfunction clues again. Click on the Solution button to see the correct solution. Correct. The cause of the malfunction could lie in this line. After an evaluation of the available information, the windscreen washer pump and the section of the water hose before it branches out into two nozzles are the most likely causes of the malfunction. On the next page, you will find out why. When reproducing the problem, you were able to hear the motor of the water pump. This means the motor still works. This means we can rule out a fault in all the components between the combination switch and the pump motor. So, you can see how valuable it is to consciously apply one's senses. By listening carefully and drawing the right conclusions, you were able to narrow down the number of possible fault sources as soon as you reproduced the malfunction. When you performed the visual check, you removed any dirt which might have been blocking the nozzles. As the malfunction persisted after this, the nozzles could not be responsible for it. Here again, your senses were important aids. You used your eyes to check the nozzles for visible damage or dirt, and you would have felt some resistance when inserting the pin into the nozzles if they had been clogged up. As you saw for yourself when carrying out the visual inspection, the washer fluid reservoir was filled with clean water. Here again, your eyes were important tools. So that just leaves the pump and the lines from the pump to the nozzles. Now, with a little power of deduction, you can home in further on the possible cause of the malfunction. When the combination switch is operated, no water comes out of either nozzle. This means that both the ducts leading to the nozzles would have to be clogged up, damaged or kinked. As this is highly improbable, these two sections of the lines can, in all likelihood, be eliminated. A combination of careful observation and logical reflection has, in this case, helped to narrow down the possible cause of the malfunction. Employing all your senses and using sound common sense were the decisive factors in solving the case. The case study we have just seen has taught some important lessons which you might find useful in your day-to-day work. The different steps should be worked through in a sensible sequence in order to home in on the cause of the malfunction as swiftly as possible. The sequence of steps and the sources of information consulted can differ depending on each particular case and are not always the same as what is shown here. But no matter what you do, you should always use your senses mindfully. Don't forget that they are important tools. And finally, you must draw the right conclusions from your observations. This way, you can often narrow down your search before having to carry out complex checks, or even pinpoint the problem with absolute certainty. A customer has brought his vehicle to the workshop with a problem. Find the malfunction with the help of the sources of information at your disposal. To do this, click on the icons on the left, then continue. Here you see the job sheet. Parktronic reports an obstruction, even though there is none. Strangely enough, this problem only occurs from time to time. Maybe it's a loose contact. It often happens after I have been driving off-road and my M-Class has been shaken around. Only yesterday it happened again, so I thought it would be best to bring the car in and see what you think. Here you see the Parktronic sensors. Have a good look at them. In order to reproduce the malfunction, turn the ignition on. Release the parking brake and engage a gear. Now try to pick up some clues about the malfunction described by the customer. The malfunction memory contains the following information. In this simplified function diagram, you can see the components involved in the malfunctioning system. Click on each of the component parts to check it. The result of each check will then be displayed. Here you can see a page from the vehicle's owner's manual. On the previous page, you were given clues about the malfunction. Now click on the component where the cause of the malfunction might be located. If you are convinced that none of the components shown here are faulty, then click on the thumbs up button for All Components OK. Anytime you wish, you can click on the Sources of Information button to evaluate the malfunction clues again. Click on the Solution button to see the correct solution. Here you see the Parktronic sensors. Have a good look at them. In order to reproduce the malfunction, turn the ignition on. Release the parking brake and engage a gear. Now try to pick up some clues about the malfunction described by the customer. Here you can see a page from the vehicle's owner's manual. Correct. Here there is no system malfunction. The problem arose due to dirt on the sensors. On the next page, you will find the explanation. The customer himself provided the decisive clue in this case. He gave important information about the conditions under which the malfunction appeared. He explicitly mentioned having driven off-road prior to the malfunction occurring. In conjunction with the owner's manual, you were able to deduce that dirty sensors could have been responsible for the malfunction. There is an easy explanation for the fact that the malfunction could not be reproduced. The vehicle had been washed before it was brought to you in the workshop, and the cause of the malfunction had naturally disappeared. Maybe you noticed during your visual inspection that the sensors were extremely clean and that there were drops of water on the vehicle, showing that it had just been washed. It is only after you have found the correct explanation that you can be certain there is not, in fact, a fault. As you can see, sources of information such as the customer or the reception employee, a simple owner's manual, and realizing that the vehicle has been washed can all help to solve a case. Now you can explain to the customer the case of the malfunction that wasn't one. The customer will always consider faulty operation a malfunction as long as he doesn't have any other explanation for it. In the third chapter of our training program, you will be able to apply what you have already learnt in 2 further examples. A customer brings his Citaro to the workshop with a problem. Find the malfunction with the help of the sources of information at your disposal. To do this, click on the icons on the left, then continue. Here you can see the job sheet. The windscreen wipers don't work at all. Neither continuous operation nor the intermittent wipe function work. Nothing happens at all. These are the visible parts of the windscreen washer system. Carry out a visual inspection. In order to reproduce the malfunction, turn the ignition on. Now you can reproduce the malfunction. Click on the icons to adjust the wiper speed. Try to find clues about the malfunction described. The malfunction memory contains the following information. In this simplified function diagram, you can see the components involved in the system with the malfunction. Click on each of the component parts to check it. The result of each check will then be displayed. On the previous page, you were given clues about the malfunction. Now click on the component where the cause of the malfunction might be located. If you are convinced that none of the components shown here are faulty, click on the thumbs up button for All Components OK. Anytime you wish, you can click on the Sources of Information button to evaluate the malfunction clues again. Click on the Solution button to see the correct solution. Correct. An evaluation of all the available information shows that the most probable cause of the malfunction is a loose mechanical connection between the wiper motor and the wiper linkage. On the next page, you will find out why. When you reproduced the malfunction, you heard the wiper motor. The motor must therefore still be working. This means you can rule out a malfunction in all the system parts between the switch and the wiper motor. So here again, you see how valuable the conscious use of all your senses can be. By listening carefully and drawing the right conclusions when reproducing the malfunction, you were already able to drastically narrow down the number of possible fault sources. You carried out a visual inspection of the windscreen wipers and did not detect any defects. So they too can be ruled out as the source of the malfunction. That leaves the wiper linkage and the mechanical connection between the wiper linkage and the motor. Using your powers of deduction, you can narrow down the probable cause of the problem even further. Broken wiper linkage is not an unlikely cause of the problem. Both sides would have to be broken, as neither of the windscreen wipers moves when the switch is operated. This means that in all probability the linkage can be ruled out as the cause of the problem. The only possible source of the malfunction left is the connection between the wiper motor and the linkage. And so it is indeed. This connection has loosened and needs tightening. A customer brings his Viano to the workshop with a problem. Find the malfunction with the help of the sources of information at your disposal. To do this, click on the icons on the left, then continue. Here you see the job sheet. In the instrument cluster, the SRS warning lamp has been lighting up for a couple of days now. In the owner's manual, I read that this has something to do with the airbag, and so I thought I'd just drop by and ask you to take a look. Here you see the vehicle cockpit. Carry out a visual inspection. In order to reproduce the malfunction, turn the ignition on and start the engine. Now you can reproduce the malfunction. The malfunction memory contains the following information. In this simplified function diagram, you can see the parts involved in the malfunctioning system. In this example, you can carry out a visual check of the component parts as well as an electrical check. Click on the icons to choose the type of examination. Click on the components in order to carry out an electrical check. Click on the components in order to carry out a visual check. On the previous page, you were given clues about the malfunction. Now click on the component where the cause of the malfunction may be located. If you are convinced that none of the components shown here are faulty, click on the thumbs up button for All Components OK. Anytime you wish, you can click on the Sources of Information button to evaluate the malfunction clues again. Click on the Solution button to see the correct solution. In this simplified function diagram, you can see the parts involved in the malfunctioning system. In this example, you can carry out a visual check of the component parts as well as an electrical check. Click on the icons to choose the type of examination. Click on the components in order to carry out a visual check. Correct. The fault lies in the plug connector for the contact spiral. After an evaluation of the available information, the most likely source of the malfunction is the plug connector for the contact spiral. You will find out more on the next page. In this particular case, the fault lies in the plug connector for the contact spiral. It was only by carrying out a very careful visual examination that it was possible to see that the pin had been pushed out. But why wasn't this fault detected when the electrics were checked? The tester was long enough to make contact with the pin that had been pushed out. Subsequently, the reading was normal. However, when the plug connector was inserted in the vehicle, the pin sometimes failed to make contact. This led to the malfunction which was registered in the malfunction memory. If you had not used your senses so skillfully and discovered the pushed-out pin, who knows, maybe you would have simply reset the malfunction memory or even exchanged the control unit for a new one. In this training program, you have learnt in several case studies, with the help of your senses, to collect the most varied kinds of information. You have evaluated the information with the help of common sense, then used it to pinpoint the cause of malfunctions. This procedure is your key to success. You have now reached the test section of this CBT program and can select test exercises from this page. Alternatively, you can simply click on Next to proceed to the next exercise that has not yet been completed.